Hello and welcome to the 2021-2022 School Community Council 101 training. First and most importantly, we want to thank you for choosing to be a part of your school community council. School community councils, or SCCs, are really such an incredible opportunity and are a wonderful example of how parents and schools can come together to serve students. Today's training will really go over a broad overview of the history of school community councils and the trust land program, as well as some information about what your responsibilities may be in the next couple of years, as well as some of the structure and rules that pertain to school community councils. There's more information available about these topics at our website. Here with the USBE, there are old training materials there, as well as informational handouts and some history of the School Land Trust program. So take a look at that when you have a free moment. So we make up, I work with Paula Plant, Natalie Gordon, and myself, and we make up the School Children's Trust section of the USBE. Paula and Natalie have been doing this work for years and are experts in this area and in school land trust issues. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us. We love communicating with school community council members as you are the backbone of our work. So please don't hesitate to reach out. So while this may be the first time you've heard from us, it certainly will not be your last. So in the next coming months, we will start sending out monthly newsletters to you individually as school community council members. In that newsletter, you will find important dates for upcoming deadlines as well as upcoming trainings. There may be also links to training videos. Sometimes we'll post videos that you can just watch in your spare time, as well as ideas for plans or inspiring stories from other school community councils, as well as signups for additional training if that's something that your school needs. So this first newsletter will go out here in October and will be sent out around the first week of every month thereafter. Included will be, like I said, some video trainings, and these are going to be some of the video trainings that will be coming out. So some of these won't really apply to you as school community council members. They will more apply to principals or maybe even your chair who have to input some of the material and follow some of the rules. But these starred ones are ones that might be of interest to you. So how to run an effective meeting and what is this about the school safety plan and the digital citizenship stuff. So be on the lookout for those. And when those newsletters come out, be sure to click on those trainings and find out more. So a couple other ways that you can stay informed. We are going to be partnering with the USBE social media team this year. So if you don't already follow them on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, go ahead and find them and begin following them so you can be sure to get our updates as well. Okay, so let's get started. What even are school community councils? Well, it's really a unique structure here in the state of Utah. They were created to allow parents and teachers and principals to work together to study the data about academic achievement at your school and to determine where necessary supports and improvements can be made. Now, the parents and the chair are all locally elected parent representatives. So this really gives parents kind of a substantial voice and input into the school decision-making process. School community councils meet throughout the year. So this is an ongoing process by which decisions are made. And school community councils are required by law. So what do they do? Well, school community councils actually existed for quite some time in the Salt Lake District back in the 80s and 90s. And legislators saw what was happening and were really excited about the work and the kind of collaboration that was happening in these schools. And they tried to expand the project across the state of Utah. But unfortunately, it didn't really catch on. That is until the School Land Trust program was established in the 90s. The Utah legislature created the school community councils for several reasons at this time. The first stated reason for school community councils was to involve families in the decision-making process at a local level. So this really is about local control and parental involvement in this public school process. The second reason why they were created was to actually improve education for our students. And that could be done through collaboration, through parents and teachers and principals working together, but also using data-driven and evidence-based processes. And then third, school community councils are meant to prudently spend and then also increase awareness of the school trust distribution. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. So after these school community councils were created, the legislature noticed that they were doing such a good job, that they were doing really incredible things for schools. And so they decided to give even more responsibility to school community councils. So some of the things that you may be asked to do this year are have input on the school's safety plan. So any programs or resources that strengthen a safe and wholesome learning environment may be something that your principal may present to you to have you help with. Also, digital citizenship, anything that empowers students and parents to make smart digital choices. You may also get asked to do school-specific projects or have input on school-related issues or even district-related issues. And then finally, the thing that you'll probably hear most about and have the most input on is the school land trust plan. And again, we'll talk more about this in a second. So who is on the council? Parents really make up the backbone of the council, but there are also teachers who can provide their input and a teacher perspective. And then finally, a principal always serves on the school community council of the school. The parents on the council must exceed the number of employees by at least 2 members. This ensures that parents always have a majority vote on the council. So if you have any questions, the way this might look at your school is if you have a principal and 1 teacher already on the council, that means that you have 2 employees serving on the council. And if you have 2 employees and you need at least 2 more parents, you're going to need 4 parents on your council. That means that at a minimum, your school community council should have 6 total members. A council is really only the voting members. So again, that's the parents, the teachers who are elected, as well as the principal. But depending on your situation, you may have other members who show up and are known as ad hoc members. This could be other administrators, so vice principals or counselors. Maybe there's a PTA liaison who comes and only observes to inform the PTA, or maybe social workers. And they're there to help support the council, to maybe provide information to the council, but they're not voting members. And a little bit of information about your term. So your term should last 2 years. There's no term limit, so you can continue to serve on your school community council as long as you want, but you must have a student at the school where you are serving. Now, this gets a little bit tricky. It must be in the fall in which you are part of the school community council. So that means that if I have a student who will be a kindergartner next year, I could actually run in the election this spring to begin serving on the board or on the school community council in the fall when she begins attending. If your student then graduates or leaves the school, you can continue to serve for the rest of your term. So if I am elected during my daughter's 6th grade year, I can continue serving even though she's gone on to middle school during her 7th grade year, but that's the last year of my 2-year term. Also, the law requires that the terms be staggered. This means that if you have those 4 parents on your school community council, 2 are elected on odd years and 2 are elected on the even years. This makes sure that there's always some institutional knowledge that is passed down and that there's always someone who knows what they're doing who can help support our newer members. Really quickly, it's important to have information about your school community council on your school website. This will be done by your chair in collaboration with the school personnel, but it's really just to involve the larger community in the conversation that you are having as a school community council member. Now, one of the requirements is that there is information on the website that allows people to contact you. As a reminder, you are an elected official, and congratulations, that's awesome. But that also means that you represent the people in your school community. And as a representative, there needs to be a way for them to contact you, for them to give you their input and their ideas, and to ask questions of you. And so on the website, there needs to be some sort of information that allows them to contact you, either an email address or an email link or a phone number. Now, the downside to that is that sometimes scammers use this information to try to get money from people. And this is not unique to school community councils. This is happening all over the world. But it is something that we want you to be aware of so that you can be prepared. The first thing that you could do is you could create an email address that is specific to your duties as a school community council member. That way, every time you open it up, you know everything that's coming to you through that email address is by someone who saw it on a website. And that may put you on guard a little bit more. Secondly, if you get any emails that are a little bit weird or raise some red flags, always be sure to check the email address that it's coming from. Oftentimes, scammers will use the names of people that you know and trust. Say it's Principal Jones. And it'll say Principal Jones at the top, but when you look at the email address, it's something weird and strange, and it's not the school-related email address. That, again, should raise red flags. The third thing that you can do is if you get anything that kind of seems strange or odd, call the school. Your secretaries at the school are incredibly knowledgeable and helpful and can help you figure out if something is actually a fraud or a scam, or if it's something legitimate and something that your principal needs. Finally, just know that your principal will never, ever ask you for money or for you to wire funds or do anything related to financials. They have a whole staff that handles that kind of stuff, and they would never ask that of school community council members. So again, thank you for serving, and we just hope that this will help you to be prepared in case something like this happens to you. So just as a quick review, there are several things that school community councils work on at the school level. There's the school safety plan, digital citizenship, all kinds of issues that come up as a school. But one of the most important ones that you will see in your time on the school community council is the school land trust program. So I want to tell you a little bit more about that now. The school land trust program was actually established quite a long time ago. It was before the United States Congress ratified the Constitution and even before the election of George Washington. The Founding Fathers then established a process through the Continental Congress to ensure that children in this new nation would always get a public education. The Founding Fathers were really concerned that there would be a public education system that would create an educated public to ensure that democracy continued on. So as part of this system, they made sure that every time that there was a new state established, there would be a system of land grants put in place that would set aside land in each new state to fund that public education system. So when Utah became a state in 1894, 6 million acres were set aside for a school trust. So that trust land, quick education on different kinds of land. So there's different kinds of legal land rights in our country today. A lot of what we interact with is private land, right? So like my house, your house, apartment buildings, those are all on private land. Someone owns that plot of land. But there's also federal land. So the purple areas, the yellow areas, the green areas here in this little picture here are all federal land. That could be things like national parks or national forests. Those are all areas that are set aside and controlled and maintained by the federal government. Now we also have state land, and that's anything that is owned and maintained by the state. State parks, the state capitol, those are areas in our state where the state owns the land. There's also tribal and sovereign land, and this is land that is given to Native Americans and indigenous tribes throughout our state through a treaty process. And then there's also trust lands. So here in this picture, you see like little blue dots kind of checkerboarded throughout this picture. Those are the trust lands. They are not taxed by the federal government, and they're supposed to be held in perpetuity for schools in Utah. This means that the money made from them and the lands themselves should benefit schools now, in 10 years, in 20 years, and forever afterward. So how does all of this land make money for schools? Well, land can make money in a lot of different ways. It can be mineral development, oil and gas, renewable energy, production, grazing and hunting, just to name a few. But all of that money goes into a pot, and that money continues to make more money through interest, right? And for the first 90 years of this program, very little was done to take care of the trust. And the money was sometimes even taken by the state legislature for other programs and other needs. But in the 80s and 90s, several education groups became aware of the trust and began researching how to best handle the land and the revenue that it could provide. Through these efforts, in 1999, the School Land Trust Program was created. And they send the annual distributable revenue to every public school in Utah on a per pupil basis. At that time was when a parent-driven council was created at each school to prepare a plan that would address the greatest academic need at their school. And they would use their share of that trust land distribution to fund that plan. Currently, there's 3.4 million acres in this trust land. And because of wise investing and oversight of the program, that fund has increased. And the size of the distribution to the School Land Trust Program has increased with it. So in 2001, our office distributed only $4.9 million to Utah public schools. This year, I'm excited to say we distributed $92.8 million in school land trust funds to public schools across the state of Utah. So when the legislature created school community councils, they wanted school community councils to do some very specific things. So here's how the trust land was supposed to be spent, or the trust land distribution is supposed to be spent. It says parents, teachers, and the principal, in collaboration with an approving entity, shall review school-wide assessment data annually. So every year review assessments and use the School Land Trust Program funds in a data-driven and evidence-based way to improve educational outcomes, consistent with the academic goals of the school's teacher and student success plan framework and the priorities of the LEA governing board. So what does that actually mean? Well, that means that you'll go through a process this year of looking at data and making decisions based on that data. So step one, you're going to look at the data. And this could really mean anything that your school wants to look at. It can be end of year tests. It can be monthly assessments that the teacher gives. It can be district-wide assessments. It can be survey data that your school gives out. Anything that helps you to know what's happening at the school is something you might want to look at. The second step is to determine the greatest academic need. This may be something that your district has already talked about, and they will give you some guidance about that. But it's just an area where you want to focus, where you know that students could use some extra improvement. The third step is to create a goal. So based on where you see the students are now, where would you like them to be in a year or 2 years or 5 years? And then you're going to decide, well, what do you need to make this goal a reality? So the legislature has also determined that there are certain appropriate academic areas that should be focused on first. So the first areas you should look at are math, science, and ELA. If you're in a high school, you can also look at college and career readiness, as well as graduation rates. Now, how does all this happen? We have sent to your schools some suggested timelines. Now, of course, your actual timelines will be set by your council and your district to meet their needs. But this is an approximation of what kinds of things you could be talking about at each meeting throughout your year. So in October, you'll probably want to get to know one another to make sure all the forms are filled out so that we know who you are and who is serving on your council. You might want to review your rules of order and procedure, etc. Then in November and December, start looking at the data. In January and February, start deciding what kind of plan you're wanting to create to meet your goals. And then March and April, really finalize that plan and turn it in. So that's kind of the year ahead that you're looking at. So what could this process look like? So again, you're going to start by looking at the data, what you already know about your students. You're going to set a goal. What do you want them to do? You're going to figure out how you want to measure that. That should be something that teachers are already doing or is already part of the school program. It doesn't need to be anything extra. Then you're going to write out some action steps. What are all the things that are going to need to happen to get students from where they are now to where you want them to be? And then finally, well, how are you going to spend the money? What do you need to make those action steps happen? So as a quick example, in my school community council, we noticed in the data that only 60% of our K through 2 students were reading on grade level. Well, we wanted our kindergarten through second graders to rate at an 80% proficiency level by the end of the year. We thought that was a worthy goal, but was also absolutely attainable within a year. So we decided that the way we were going to test this was using the Acadience assessments. We talked to our teachers. The teachers on the council said this is something we are already doing. So we're going to use that data as we move forward throughout the year to see, is our goal actually on track? Then we decided to talk about what is it that we need to do to support our K through 2 students. Well, we dug into some of the evidence-based things, and we found that full day kindergarten is one way that students increase their language skills. So we wanted to implement full day kindergarten for everyone. Second, we saw that lower student to teacher ratios help students learn. So we wanted to hire some more instructional assistants that would help our students get more one-on-one time with adults and teachers. We also knew that technology and interventions and enhanced classroom lessons could really support their learning. So we wanted to pay for some extra technology things and interventions that could help support our students. And then finally, one I was really excited about was some research that was done on art and music enrichment supporting language and reading growth in students. So we decided to implement an enrichment program for art and music for our K2 students. So what would we need to spend money on? Well, for action steps 1, 2, and 4, we would need to spend about $58,000 on salary and benefits. So hiring all those extra teachers, art and music teachers, having kindergarten teachers that worked all day long, that would require about $58,000. For action steps 3 and 4, we would need about $20,000 in technology supplies. And then for all that art supplies and music and sheet music and things like that, we would need about $5,800 for expendable items. So this is just one example of the type of plan that you could come up with your school community council. And really, we encourage you to be creative and thoughtful about the kind of plan that you come up with. Again, the purpose is really to have parental involvement because you have a perspective that is different and unique from teachers and principals and the people that already work at the school. So we encourage you to work with those individuals, to work with your principal, work with your teachers to come up with plans and programs that support students and really increase achievement across the board. Again, thank you so much for serving on your school community council. We would not be able to do what we do without you. So we are so grateful for you. And really, if you have any questions ever, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love to support our parents and our school community council members. And we look forward to communicating with you throughout your term. Thank you again. Have a good night.